Hello friends and welcome to Zonadiscgolf. We are here to show you the Spanish Ultimate Frisbee Championships that has been held in Getxo in the Basque Country in this month of July. And we have two special guests to commentate it. We have the Young family, Sean and Aidan Young. Hey, welcome to Zonadiscgolf.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
And you are both players of the Diskolaris, the local club.
Well, yeah, I mean, my ultimate career goes back sort of 20 years ago, where I used to play a lot in the UK with the team in London. And then I played a little bit in Diskolaris and introduced my three kids, Aidan of which is one, and they're now taking on the mantle and playing ultimate here in Bilbao.
That's great. We are already watching the first semi-final in the first division between Krakens from Barcelona and Quijotes from Madrid. Aidan, you had the chance to play the final in second division, and what's your impression with the level of this tournament?
Well, the first division had an extremely high level, which we had never seen before. I think this was probably the highest level and most intense tournament that we've seen. Here we can see the semi-final between Quijotes and Krakens. It was a very intense game as Quijotes from Madrid actually went up 3-0 in the first 15 minutes of the game. However, Krakens were able to mount a massive comeback as they eventually won the game. So you can clearly see that ultimate, there's never any, it's never over in ultimate. There's always a way to come back at some point, and here you can see that this is what happened in this game. The teams hyping themselves up, and that's the most important part, as the momentum and intensity of the match is one of the main deciders of who wins the game.
Okay, Sean, what do you think about the level of the ultimate frisbee scene in Spain compared to the rest of Europe?
Well, obviously it's been some time since I was playing. I was playing sort of in the UK with the top club at the time that won nationals for 4 or 5 years in a row, and then we played in international tournaments. The level has definitely increased in general across the whole world as the sport continues to grow. And it's great to see the level now in Spain really picking up as well. And, you know, the Spanish teams are doing relatively well in European competitions. And I think what we're going to see as more and more teams take up the sport, more and more people play, we're going to see the level improving.
That's great. And also from the people from Guayota, Tenerife, they told us that they organize a couple of international tournaments, and Spain is an attractive destination for, I guess the climate will have something in to say, no? Maybe it's an attractive place to make international tournaments.
Yeah, well, that's nice. I mean, Aidan himself can tell you, I think, when was the Valencia tournament that you went to? It was sort of winter or autumn, and the weather was fantastic.
The beach nationals were held in December of 2021, and it was extremely good weather. So I think the ability to have tournaments at whichever month and have good weather, I think that definitely influences people's decision to come and play in Spain.
And it's interesting to see that the top club, or the favourites here, are a team from the Canary Islands, where I guess they can get to practice in good weather the whole year round. So lucky them.
Okay, what's your impression about this first semi-final between Krakens Barcelona and Quijotes Madrid?
It was a great semi-final to watch. You could just see the momentum shift as Quijotes got 3 points in a row at the beginning of the match. And then the momentum completely shifted as Krakens just gained point after point over and over. It seemed that Quijotes seemed to lose their cool as Krakens came back. They began to make some mistakes, possibly throwing some throws that they shouldn't have, risking it when they didn't need to. Krakens have an incredible D-line, as you can see here. Their defensive line is extremely intense, and they're always on top of every single player they play against. And I think that pressure that they mount sometimes breaks the teams, as you can see right there. A simple, easy short throw is messed up simply because of the pressure that they can put on. Here you can see a chat that they have in the middle of the game, trying to regain some of their momentum from Quijotes.
For me, it's nice to see how the level of athleticism is increasing, and we're seeing some really strong athletes joining the teams. And in fact, Kraken has a couple of American players that are playing at a very high level in the US, but they're spending time in Barcelona, so they're able to join their team. And on the defensive side of Ultimate, a huge amount of it is about the level of athleticism of the team and the players and the motivation. On the offensive side, it's about having a cool head, keeping your throws, not making many mistakes, being very, very cool. So that switch needs to go off in your head from being fully sort of pumped up and running as hard as possible on defense to being, under control, cool, calm and collected when you turn that into offense.
Why do I see another Young?
I know. So yeah, the Young family have three young players. Nolan there is playing with the Kraken team. He's living and studying in Barcelona at the moment and really motivated for this tournament with high hopes of doing very, very well. Aidan, obviously the youngest, playing for Diskolaris, and then my daughter Lara was playing with Diskolaris women. So it was very difficult to actually try and watch all three of them when they're playing at the same time, but I did my best.
Busy father.
Yeah.
Here we can see the end of the match.
There was a bit of wind out there, actually, and it's worth mentioning. And so, any scores that you would describe as breaks, where basically you've scored the upwind point against the run of play, is a significant advantage, because it's definitely easier to score downwind than it is when you're throwing up against the wind and trying to keep all your pass consistent, throwing into the wind.
Okay, I didn't know that. A bit like tennis, no? When you have the serve or something like this, that you're supposed to win that point.
More, yeah, it certainly has more impact than it would have on a tennis ball. But yeah, you notice that the good players, the control players, the good handlers, they're managing and able to throw both short and long passes directly into the wind, and it does make a big difference.
We should also mention the heat. It was extremely hot during this weekend. It reached points of almost 30 degrees Celsius. And I think that played a massive role in, especially during the time of the semi-finals and the finals, which were held at midday, definitely played a huge role in tiring the players. And just the sheer heat is also a mental game, as you just feel so much slower. You feel more tired every single point just because of how hot it was.
Yeah. Okay, we're watching the second semi-final, the Guayota's Tenerife on the clear blue T-shirt against Disckatus Madrid, the dark blue.
Mm-hmm. This is actually a sort of a rematch as last month in June in the mixed nationals, in which men and women played together. This was the actual final between Disckatus Madrid and Guayota. Guayota won that game. I believe it was around 15-6 or 7 possibly, and you could just simply see that Guayota were a step ahead at every point in that game. And I think that final was replicated in this semi-final, as Guayota won this game by a relatively large margin of around 6 or 7 points.
Yeah, Guayota have come into this tournament as favourites, as number ones, both in the open division and also in the women's division. And I think that they've won, the national championships for many years in a row in the past. So they're coming in as strong favourites, but I do think that each year they're getting tougher challenges, and we'll see later on in the final of the Open, they'll see their toughest challenge yet.
Yeah, this nationals are definitely preparations for them, as they will be competing in the World Ultimate Club Championships later this month in Cincinnati. They'll be competing against the best clubs in the world. Beautiful. So they'll be taking this definitely as preparation, as a warm up for those World Championships in a couple of weeks.
I saw yesterday an interview with Sergio Díaz, one of the players in the Canarian television, and he told that the team is quite old. It's something like 20 years old or something like this. It was born because of a cooperation with La Laguna University, and they started the course, and it had a lot of success, and they are all every year they have new players that enter the university, and it's gained a lot of momentum. And it's a bit surprising that when you live on an island, I asked them how do you make to have high level competition every week or every month, because it's not easy to travel by plane to Peninsula every time. No, it's amazing. Okay, here we have the third and fourth place in the female division between the Dulcineas, which Madrid, and Tramontana from Girona in Catalonia.
So Dulcineas is actually the female part of the Quijotes team. So the Quijotes, which we saw in the semi-finals playing against Krakens, this is the women's part of the Quijotes and Dulcineas team. So as you can see, both of them have a very high level, as both of them are competing in for the top 4 positions of nationals.
For those who have read Quijote, you will know why they are called Dulcinea, of course.
Yes,
Dulcinea
that's right.
is the platonic girlfriend of Don Quixote.
And you can see that the women's game is exactly the same as the men's, exactly the same, regulations, rules, pitch size, absolutely everything, which makes the sport extremely popular with both men and women. And, I really enjoy the mixed game as well, where both men and women can play all together and with each other.
There are some sports where the female competition is very pleasant to see. I think that Ultimate is one of them. You actually see that when they start every point and the first drive, they almost arrive to the other end of the course. So there are no big difference between strength or something. So they can be as spectacular as male competition.
What we just saw there on that the image you had there taken from the drone, a perfect play, offensive play that they've obviously rehearsed. It was basically 3 passes and they had the score, and they'd obviously rehearsed that play beforehand because it worked really well to get them into the end zone.
Yeah. I see sometimes that when they make the start drive, sometimes they put the disc very flat so it lands, but sometimes they put some extreme hyzer on hyzer. Maybe they want the disc to roll to disturb the other players.
Yeah, there are certainly different set plays from the beginning, from the pull. There are certain teams who want to mount certain types of defenses, certain zones. For example, a cup. And in order to do so, they may decide to throw a massive anhyzer and roll the disc way off the pitch so that they have time to set up their zone. So it all depends on the aim of the team, how they want to set up their defense. Sometimes they just want to get it as far as they can if they want to play a man-on-man defense, or they may tactically place the disc at certain corners or sides of the field in order to mount their defense accordingly.
We're watching now an Ultimate Frisbee, which is way bigger than a disc golf Frisbee. Both of them, both Son and Aidan, are quite powerful disc golf players. They play here in the Bilbao Disc Golf Club. Which are the main differences between an Ultimate Frisbee and a disc golf disc?
Definitely both the size and weight of the disc. The Ultimate Frisbee disc weighs around 175 grams, and because of that, it flies completely differently to different disc golf discs. You have to throw it very hyzer in order to reach. In order to reach as far as you can, you have to throw it almost complete hyzer throw, compared to disc golf, in which you have to throw it almost completely flat. And it's just completely different techniques to throw with each disc. However, I do think playing both sports at the same time does improve you in each sport, as you learn different techniques and how to improve your throw from playing both of them at the same time. Yeah.
And you're seeing now, actually, in the PDGA, in the sort of professional golf, so you're seeing a number of ultimate players are now coming in and playing disc golf. And where they're always going to be quite strong is approaches, just throwing that backhand or that sidearm and a sort of approach very steady, because they've done it, thousands and thousands of times playing ultimate.
One question: we see sometimes some injured ultimate players, because I think that ultimate Frisbee is quite hard on your body. Maybe that because sometimes you find some 35-year players that want to make something more relaxed, because it's so hard on the body, on your joints, etc.
Yeah. I played probably till I was a sort of 30, 31, 32, and the body was beginning to sort of take a lot of damage. But then, interestingly, I came back and started playing again at about 45 for a few years, just so I could introduce the kids to the sport. But no, in theory, it is a non-contact sport, but it obviously is. There's quite a bit of contact, and there's constant running. It's a very fast sport, and the most common injuries are typically collarbone, shoulder, or knee, because you're throwing yourself on the ground. It can be quite hard ground, and you can pop out your shoulder or break your collarbone. That seems to be the most common injury. I certainly did my knee and ankle a couple of times, and Aidan has a history of twisting his ankle playing ultimate as well.
Okay, and we are watching now the female final between Guayota's Tenerife, also in light blue, and Corocotta, Santander, in Cantabria, in northern Spain, in yellow and black.
Yeah, so these two teams, they have quite a history. Corocotta have a very strong mix of, they have a lot of very young female players from the university in Santander, and then they also have a lot of veteran players that have been playing for a very long time, in their 30s, some even in their 40s. And I think we can see here with Guayota, also from Tenerife, that they have an extremely high level of ultimate skills that I believe is just a level above almost everyone else in Spain. They have an extremely strong university level in Ultimate in Tenerife. I think that was reflected in this tournament. Also, the level of athleticism they all have there. We can see a massive huck and a great run to the end zone. And I think you can just see that the level of Guayota, especially the feminine team, they're all very athletic, they're very fast, they can run for very long, and they also have incredible throws, which I'm sure we'll see in this poll here.
How important is the fitness on Ultimate? Because you play some 70 minutes matches, I think it's important.
Yes, it depends on each tournament that they'll set a different length for matches. Usually it's around 70 minutes to 15 points. So, but they can go on for longer than 70 minutes. Almost to 90 minutes, and the fitness is just so important because you're just constantly running around. It's a mixture of so many different sports and there's so many different movements in which you have to change direction, either sprint long or you have to cut back and sprint as hard as you can back towards the disc. And especially on defense as well, having to stay on top of your mark. I think that both endurance, speed, athleticism, all of that is just vital if you want to be a good ultimate player.
I mean, like basketball, you've got sort of unlimited substitutes, so you can bring on different players. So basically, you run your heart out for the points that you're on at that time. There's no slacking off, and you really have to do that. And what's interesting, when you get to World Championships, those tournaments can be 6 days long, and you're playing 1 or 2 matches of 90 minutes at World Championship level a day for 5 days. So you need to bring a big squad, and it's a high intensity sport. Yeah, but of course it's lots of fun, so that keeps you going.
Yes, I think that something that here we can see a massive huck all the way to the end zone. And we'll see if they can manage to get it, score a point right on the edge of the end zone. She dumps it back.
So in each team, there's typically people that are identified as the handlers of the team. And those are like the quarterbacks, but rather than just being one, there's typically three or so. Then you have your mid-level cutters, who are the people sort of who make those short cuts to give relief to the handlers and try and work the disc down the pitch. And then you have 1 or 2 players that are playing in this sort of deeper or longer positions. And those are the ones that are making the longer runs to try and get the big scores in the end zone. But you can rotate. If you've got a deep enough squad of players, you can rotate those roles so that the other defense team doesn't get to know who's playing where exactly and get used to it.
I see that sometimes they change a lot of players between attack and defense. And Tenerife told me that they didn't brought all the team because they have more lines. So you are like in American football or in rugby, you change attack for defense, so you let them rest.
Yeah, you tend to have a set D line and O line for attacking and defending, and people on the D line are usually the strongest defenders on the team. They're maybe the strongest physically, and then they can just shut down their marks. While the O line of the attackers, they'll have to be simply the best attackers on the team. That it is expected if you're on the O line, you need to score a point. You can't mess up in any way. While if you're on the D line, your role is to let your O line rest in order to score the next point, but also just tire the other team out and hopefully get a turnover and score a point once in a while as well.
Okay, so we have seen the victory from Guayota's Tenerife, and we start with the Here we are. Oh, yeah, okay. This is the
a
final.
warm-up.
This is the warm-up. The warm-up
yeah.
of the final on second division between Immortales from Madrid and Discolaris Getxo. Okay, you have something to say here, Aidan.
So here we can see both teams warming up. Both of these teams are the top two in the second division. So both of them have ascended to the first division and will be competing there next year. So this is simply playing for pride, playing for the glory.
It's like a New Zealand haka, something like this.
Yeah, they have their little, they have their Excalibur sword, which they use in their cheer,
but not for playing.
Not for playing, no. And I think this was probably the most exciting match of the second division, as both of these teams were probably expecting and wanting to play in first division, but had not qualified for it yet, as they hadn't played as a team in men's. So here we can see that this was the first point that they played, and I think it was a very exciting match. Here we can see Discolaris playing a zone defense with a cup, in which they have three players marking a sort of wall in front of the handlers, and then we have four other players that are marking the different sections of the pitch. So you have someone on the left, someone in the middle, someone on the right, and then you have another person that's cutting off the long throw.
Yeah, I think that this drone footage is interesting for filming. No, I think it can give you even a different perspective as a player, not to see all those zones and all those strategies. No, I think that there is a lot of room to improve as ultimate tournament broadcasting. But I think it's a very spectacular sport.
You get to see the movements. What maybe for those who don't know the sport, maybe don't realize is that there are pre-prepared plays. A little bit like, again, in American football, where you have decided beforehand, we're going to run a particular play, who's going to cut when, and if it all goes right, then hopefully you're going to score. But not all the time it goes right, and you need to be able to improvise. But this footage that we're seeing here is very helpful to sort of see the movement of players, how they're lining up. Are they using a vertical or horizontal stack, it's called? And in this case, they're now trying to put on they're still playing man-to-man. Oh no, they're playing a cup actually there, it looks like. Good grab. And Diskolaris are trying to work it down the pitch, and they need to be patient. When you're playing against the zone defense, it's all about patience, because playing zone is very tiring for the defenders.
Yeah.
And they broke through. Nice score.
What does Ultimate need to become more popular? Because I think it's a very complete sport. The self-referee, good values, fun. It's women and men. What does it need to get that next step?
The Olympics. And it'll be there soon, honestly. I do believe that, because it's already in, international colleges. It's one of the biggest sports in the US at university colleges. And it did start as a college type sport and university sport, and that's the way it starts in many European countries. It's at university level where people get introduced to it. But I do think it is a sport that will eventually get into the Olympics, because they are focusing now more on younger, cooler sports. Like we saw surf get into the Olympics, we saw skate, we got climbing all got into the Olympics last time round, and it won't be too long until Ultimate is there too.
Oh, here's Kevin McFerrin, another Bilbao Disc Golf Club player.
Yeah, Kyle's a great player, an American that's been living in Spain for 15 years or more, and it's great to have him on the team.
Yeah.
And it's quite an international sport, so even within Diskolaris, you've got players from different parts of the world. Nice catch from Kyle.
Yeah,
I think it's a great source of unity between so many different countries, because it's something that, as not many people play it, it's something special that people share no matter where they're from. So just playing on any Ultimate team, you can get to know people that have played for some of the best teams from around the world. Here in this final, Diskolaris managed to win the game. I believe it was 13-6. So they won the second division championship. This was a very intense game. I think the entire time it was very close, although I think possibly the wind played a big role, as Diskolaris from Getxo in Bilbao, they have probably a lot more wind than Immortales back in Madrid, so they may have had that advantage of being able to have practiced in wind and being able to control their throws more. Immortales also had at times struggled against their zone defense, especially with the wind, often risking a risky throw in which our D was managed to pick up. And then we simply just didn't. We managed to avoid turning it over and get those breaks that the D line needed.
Yeah, I remember this game was 6 points all, and then there was a slight increase in wind, and the zone started to work a little bit better for Diskolaris. And there was a long run then where they opened up a good lead.
And as the wind picked up, the zone became more and more important as a zone, especially a cup, is only really played in wind. As if there is no wind, the attacking team can simply just throw a knife, throw a hammer, throw a scuba right over the cup. While if there's wind, each thrower has to hesitate a bit more. It's a lot riskier to throw those throws. So I think, especially in the wind, it's a lot more important to mount that zone defense.
And here we're seeing some nice drone footage. Let's see if Diskolaris can work it down the line. That's Yosu, the captain, on the disc at the moment, one of the main handlers of the team.
He also won the MVP, most valuable player, in these finals. As he is the captain of the Diskolaris team, and he led them to victory in every game that they played. He's a vital part of the team, I think.
Is Ultimate anywhere near professionalism? Is there any money in Ultimate Frisbee?
There is an AUDL, American Ultimate Disc League, in the United States. However, they have a slightly different rules. It's almost a different game as they have a much bigger field. It's even played with quarters. It's a lot more similar to an NBA or an NFL sort of sport. And I think that there is certain, it's semi-professional. It is called professional, as some players can earn some money, although it's not enough to make a living off of. Although that does incentivize players to train a lot harder and play with their team more. Although the AUDL is the only professional and paid teams and leagues, it's actually probably not the highest level as that is with the international club scene, as there are many players that play in both the AUDL and with their club. So, for example, there are certain cities in the US which have both AUDL and club teams, and players that can alternate between both of them and play for both of them at the same time.
And has it arrived to Europe? Or Europe is still
no,
sport?
There is no professional league which can be paid money for only in the US. However, the European clubs is also very big, is also becoming more and more popular, and the European Championships are being held every year and are becoming more and more popular with each passing year, I think.
Okay, so we are seeing the end of this match that would give the victory to, what a nice blind pass.
No look pass, very nice. And you can see what's nice about Ultimate is that you can get people that are extremely tall, like number 99, I think it is there. But also then you have smaller, shorter players that typically play in the handler positions who are sort of, very fast over short distances. Yeah. So you need a mix of sort of body types playing the game. That's Aidan on the disc, who's unusual in that as a tall player, he's actually also a handler for the team. And there we go. Hey. Score. Nice one, Aidan. You remember that, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, but Immortales had a very solid squad. They're composed of a lot of Venezuelans. Their Ray Santoyo, number 1, he was also a Venezuelan, and they used to play together back in the day. All of these Immortales Venezuelan veterans have been able to mount their own team in Madrid, and they're slowly gaining some really good players, especially from the university. And I think that it's great to see how much they will grow. Both these teams will grow playing in first division next year.
Igor, that has worked very hard to organize this championship. We want to thank both the Diskolaris Ultimate Club and the Getxo, and of course the federation. So we are in the big final, Guayota Tenerife against Krakens Barcelona, the final of the first division. This is the real stuff.
Yeah, this was going on at the same time that Aidan was playing his final. So it was, and I was trying to watch both games, looking one side and the other. That's Nolan, the other member of the young family there on the disc. It was really a very good game, I have to say. Kraken got out to a fast start and were leading 5-2, which was probably unexpected, that they were able to jump so fast into that sort of early lead. Really, really intense defense, got quite a few turnovers and managed to be composed, on offense and get the scores. But then I think we started to see the sort of the cool heads and the very solid play of the favourites basically, and they gradually came back. And the main switch for me watching the match was there was a little bit of drop of concentration from Kraken at that sort of 5-2. Then they were 7-5 up, but then they went from being 7-5 up to sort of 9-7 down. There were 4 points in the row that they let go, and that was a real major turning point in the game, and they were struggling then to sort of get it back. Nice to be able to see here the drone footage. You can see there's a lot of movement, a lot of running, but a lot of pressure here on D.
I think the most important reason that Guayota managed to win this final after being down 5-2 was simply their experience that they all have. They've been in so many of these situations before. They've played finals both at Spanish levels and on European and even world levels, which I think Krakens simply they've never been to this kind of important match. And I think that Guayota were able to keep their level head and keep a cool head, while Krakens may have gotten simply too nervous having a lead against this team. But we can see that it's simply incredible for both teams. Krakens getting second and Guayota first in the Spanish nationals. Both of them played incredibly throughout the whole tournament.
Here's the female team of Guayota, of course, cheering out their colleagues
from the sidelines. Yeah, it is. I have to say, it is a shame that the finals were played at the same time as other games were going on, because it'd be much nicer if we had a.
There we saw a massive Callahan as the defending Guayota team managed to catch the disc in the end zone, and so they managed to get a point without even need to do any pass. That was an incredible Callahan, and I think that was an important tonal shift in the game as they got this halfway through the game in order to tie the game up.
Tell us what is saying.
Here here we can see Guayota talking about how they started off strong, but they've got their momentum. They're got to play their game. And then they're saying that on the D, they just need to be on them and they just need to play their game and they'll win.
Yeah. They insisted that they can make some breaks on us, but we can keep the same rhythm all the 70 minutes, and there's no one in Spain that can stand those 70 minutes at those high levels. So we have to keep our momentum.
Yeah, there we could see that he was saying, we're not stars, we're a team, and I think that's also important. As Krakens have a lot of players that have only joined recently, and while Guayota have a team there are so many veterans that have been playing for years and years together, and I think that was also important in getting their victory. As you can see, one of the most important aspects of Kraken's team was the quality of all of their players. They had one player that played for UNC Darkside in North Carolina in the US, who are multiple-time champions of college nationals in the US. There's also another American that played for Krakens in the white leggings who was vital on the defensive line. And they just have a lot of veterans from here. We could see him laying out that American there in very American style fashion. Whoa. Oh, that's a massive hammer from Guayota. And I think both teams just played very well in this final. There was no real obvious loser. I think both teams Guayota were just slightly better than their opponents.
What a great aesthetically looking is a big hammer. It's great to see.
Yeah. And there's a bit of wind out there, but that was a downwind score, which makes that throw a little bit easier.
Yeah, with downwind, you could throw it as far as you can and give a bit of an-highs to make it roll a bit. So we could see there that it was difficult to pick up the disc, leaving the defense some time to get the.
As you know as well, the disc golf disc. Which flight values would you give to an ultimate disc?
It would be very
speed, glide.
It would be very understable. Probably like a -3, -4 on the stability, and then it can, speed-wise, it can it won't go as far as your drivers, as it is larger and weighs a bit more. Although I believe it's a lot easier to control than a disc golf driver. There we can see Nolan breaking the mark with a nice forehand, and this guy getting up in the air. There we can see the importance of athleticism. That's the UNC Darkside player there, Wild. And I think that's the importance of athleticism we could see there. We could see a big crossfield hammer there to the other side of the field.
We have talked about the plane. We have talked about Colombian players, Venezuelan players. Why there is such a big scene in Latin America? Ultimate Frisbee is something important.
It is hugely popular in Latin America. I'm not really sure why it is so popular. It's played with extreme intensity and physicality. There, it's possibly them known as the teams with the highest contact. That they love shoving and pushing each other there. There we can see a massive Sky as he gets the defense. But yeah, I think it's incredible that it's growing in North and South America, and I think that's extending over to Europe. And in Asia, it's big in Japan, not as big in the other. There's a massive Sky from Nolan.
Nice work, Nolan.
To get the point.
I love the detail of getting the cap out.
Yeah, because when you've got the cap on and you're running and the disc is above you, you can miss it, and you have to sort of throw it off and hope that you don't lose it. So
there we see that the player that threw that. He has an incredible forehand. He's possibly one of the best.
Yeah. So Nolan's going to love this when he sees this. I hope.
And he's got a massive Sky on two Guayota players right there.
So yeah, he had a good final, but I was speaking to him afterwards. He was obviously very disappointed, but felt that they played quite well. Just mistakes and a bit more experience. They are a younger team, and they just need a bit more experience.
I think they'll definitely be back next year, looking for the win in the first nationals. I think this was a good lesson to learn from, and I think that they'll be back in 2023 looking for the championship of First Division.
So all the players looked really exhausted by the end. It was
the last 10 minutes.
Yeah,
of the
it was
final.
very hot, as you know, and they were playing at a very high speed and level. So I think they were happy when it was finally over. They could take a rest. Now we're seeing just very steady handling here. And that's what they were good at. That's a risky throw. Yeah.
And we can see how important the movement of the disc is in Ultimate. Moving the disc as quickly as possible, getting the defense tired, and just minimizing those risks. I think that's one of the most vital parts of playing Ultimate at a high level, is valuing the disc, but also just moving it quickly, throwing it into open space, and keeping the defense on their toes.
Yeah, at the highest levels, when you're watching, the real highest levels, you may only have 2 or 3 turnovers in an entire 70-minute match, which is like really incredible, that level of consistency on the offense. Yeah. And it can be 1 or 2 turnovers, 1 or 2 mistakes can make the entire difference in a 70-minute match.
Here we can see another one of those big forehands from that player. Nolan gets it at the edge of the end zone. He dumps it back, gets it again, back into the end zone again. You can also see the importance of constantly shifting your feet, moving around, both when you have the disc and when you don't have the disc. You have to keep the opponent on their toes, and that's how you get open. You have to constantly fake, cut one way, then run back the other. When you have the disc, you have to fake one shot and move your whole body to keep your mark guessing, and that's so important of having that agility both with and without the disc, to be able to get off of your mark, and we can just see just how important all of those athletic aspects are. Here we can see a massive huck to the edge of the end zone, which is a big Sky, and he dumps it back.
Yeah, it gave them Tenerife a 3-point advantage, I think, and the Barcelona coach was trying to keep the guys fighting 2 points difference, but there's little time now.
And there, the puller, he won the MVP of these finals. He's an extremely experienced player, one of the best defenders in Spain, and he's a beautiful player to watch. And here we can see the Krakens offense trying to get it back in these final few points, although it's very difficult. It's a very important mental obstacle to get back and win those last few points, especially when you're down. But we can see them moving the disc bit by bit, minimizing those turnovers, and there's just a mistake. Possibly the pressure got to the thrower, and I think that's just how important the mental game is in Ultimate.
I see a lot of shots from where the player gets the disc very low when on the throw. I guess you want to make it rise to make it easier to catch, or to
depending on the wind, you'll have to throw it. You have to throw it lower in order for it to especially when you're playing upwind, you have to throw it lower in order for it to, because the wind will push the disc up. Yeah. But also I think just simply throwing it low because the mark can't get to it. Obviously, when you have your defender that's moving his hands trying to stop you from throwing, the lower you throw it, the harder it'll be for them to get there. And if you fake that low throw and get them off balance, then you'll have a completely open shot from anywhere.
This point felt like the last nail in the coffin.
Yeah, exactly, because, Kraken had it on offense downwind and turned it over, and the other team came straight back and scored upwind. So, yeah, this when I saw that actually point, I said, okay, this is probably over now. They just need to run out the time, and when the cap comes in and get another.
Oh, there's a big sky from Nolan again on that player again. He'll be happy about that one. And he'll be running long, although he couldn't.
I was filming, and I promise I was not paying special attention to him. It was well deserved.
He'll be very happy, Calixto. He'll pay you that money that he promised you.
There's Nolan with the disc again, trying to fake his mark.
Side arm in, nice.
Nice, got the point. Although maybe objected to, maybe calling it out. We'll see. There we can see another
so it was actually
risky messed up throw, although Nolan times his jump perfectly. We can also see the importance of timing and knowing your own athleticism, knowing when to jump, how high you jump. There we can just see that the Guayota player simply jumped a second too early, while Nolan jumped at the perfect time and managed to get the disc.
Is forehand start drive very usual? I usually tend to see backhand.
It depends on the player, especially if. There we can see a massive forehand.
Wow.
Oh, and it's a massive layout, although it's dropped.
That was as well. A good effort there. Really
that was a
bid.
great effort. Yeah, a great bid. There we can see the handshake afterwards. The level of respect I think every player has for each other is huge. Even though you're playing against each other in the finals, you can just see how much these players respect each other and respect how.
Yeah, it was a very good game, very good spirit. I thought it was played in, and there were very few calls made. Everything was very clean. I thought it was a really enjoyable final to watch. Actually,
girls taking position. Yeah,
and there Guayota won the final. There you can just see some disappointment from the Krakens.
But they deserved it.
Guayota deserved that win, although Krakens knew that they should have won that as they were up halfway through.
We can hear now some words of the final speech of both teams, and they both agreed that it was a well-deserved victory, and they're all going to learn. I see a lot of hand clapping and a lot of good ambience, and it's very important.
It's always extremely important to just get a handshake with the entire team, both before and after the team. Here we can see both captains of the Krakens and Guayota team talking after the game, possibly talking about the spirit, talking about the level of respect and cleanliness of the game. Here we can see Krakens talking about how they should have improved in the circle. Just both teams. It's extremely important to reflect on how you need to get better in the future, and then after that they'll likely all form a circle, both teams together, and they'll talk about they'll show respect for each other and talk about the final for a bit. Here we can see the Guayota player talking about how they need to get ready for the World Championships in a couple of weeks.
We have a short interview with both captains that they are both Spanish championships. Aidan, tell us what they're saying.
So here's Calixto asking about why the Canary Island teams are so good. He's saying that from the year 2000 that they started playing Ultimate in university. And from then on that they managed to teach all of their students, and that they just continued what those players built back in the year 2000. Here we're talking about the issues of traveling from the Canary Islands all the way to Europe. Here they're talking about how they always want to travel around Europe, as in the Canary Islands they don't have any league, as they're only one team over there. So they simply love traveling and playing Ultimate abroad. They're talking about the level of the tournament. They're saying that it was a very hard tournament. He mentioned that they're playing the World Ultimate Club Championship in 2 weeks. And here they only play with 2 lines, so they had a low amount of players, which they will likely bring a much larger amount of players in the final, in the World Ultimate Club Championships. but that he's saying that the importance of the cool heads and their level of defense and intensity, but they said that they love the final and they love the challenge that Krakens gave them. And here we're talking about how long they've been training for those final Ultimate Club Championships, and he's talking about how long that those games are, those 70-minute games, and how tiring they can be, especially playing over multiple days. And always talking about giving 110%. And he's talking about how much their training played a role in playing much longer games, 90 minutes. So I think that also that showed in the finals, their training for those long games. And here they're talking about the women's division, hopefully making 2 divisions in Spain for next year. But that they said that the women's division managed to bring 7 teams to nationals, and that they were all very strong, very fun challenges for Guayota and good training for them, and that they're very excited to see what the future of women's ultimate in Spain holds. Asking what Guayota is, it's the name of the devil that is slept within us. That's what it is.
It's left inside the volcano.
Yeah, in the volcano.
Very good, very scary. So the devil versus the Kraken.
Here's the responsible of tourism from Getxo. We want to thank again to all the Getxo and all the people has made possible this tournament, both the Diskolaris team, the Spanish Ultimate Frisbee Federation, and both of you, because of coming here and commenting with us. I think it has been a very, very interesting chat.
It's been great fun, actually, yes. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's been very fun to watch this.
Yeah.
I've had a chance to watch these games back.
What's your plans for the next year? If Diskolaris is now in first division, you will have to travel a bit more.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to travel a bit more in Diskolaris. We'll be playing first division next year, both in the mixed division and in the men and women's division. So we're very excited to simply up our level as our training is going to be different, having to compete against first division teams next year. But I think we're very excited for the challenge, and we're welcoming being able to play against the best teams in Spain, such as Guayota, Krakens, and Quijotes, and Disckatus, and more.
And maybe even traveling to Europe. How is the relationship with Europe?
Well, we'll see how we do at nationals. In order to travel to Europe, we'll have to first perform very well in these nationals, and I think that just being able to first manage to compete very well against these teams in Spain, and then we'll be able to look for the European Championships.
We will have the trophies with all the teams. Immortales, who made the second, play the final against Diskolaris, which are the champions with the second division. There they are. The trophy. And Sean, what about the relationship between Ultimate and Disc Golf? We have already mentioned, but I think they're both complementary, and they even bring some players from one specialty to the other. And I think it's very interesting for both Ultimate players to know if there is a disc golf course nearby, and for disc golf players to test, try Ultimate.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously I used to play at Ultimate, and when I was playing, there wasn't a lot of disc golf around at the time, but now to be able to pick up a disc and sort of continue it with disc sports in general is great. But I think Aidan is a good example where Ultimate is definitely his first love. He started disc golf. He thought that disc golf was ruining his Ultimate game, but now he's at the stage where he said he's the guy that's been selected to do the pulls at the start of the thing, because he's been able to translate some of the disc golf driving skills into his long throws in Ultimate. So there is definitely a crossover and some skills that you can sort of cross from one Ultimate across to disc golf and vice versa.
Okay, that's great. Here is the Guayota women, which has won the Spanish championship. That's true, they are all very young and very athletic. I think there's a bright future ahead, sorry. And also Diskolaris has a female. We have already seen that there is a Diskolaris women team.
Yes, Diskolaris managed to both bring a women's and men's team, and I think I think that was a huge milestone for us, being able to bring out both of those teams, and they're both able to compete at a very high level. And I think we're excited to see where both the men and women's team can progress next year.
Okay, so here we go with the.
Here we can see that
podium.
the final for third and fourth position, Quijotes Madrid managed to beat Disckatus Madrid, both from the same city. And there we can see Miguel Espiau, number 0, who threw his cap in the air. He was also a very good disc golf player here in Spain. And I'm sure Calixto can tell you some more about him.
Yeah, I think he's very enthusiastic. He works in the Spanish Federation and the Disc Golf Association is always trying to help to grow the sports. It's a pleasure to cooperate with them. And here we have the vice champions, the Krakens from Barcelona. Barcelona also has some beach scene, no? Which are the biggest difference between the beach and the grass?
Well, beach is 5-on-5, while grass is 7-on-7. In beach, the pitch is slightly smaller as well, and I think in beach it's a much slower game as playing in sand. Everyone runs a lot slower, but I think it also because it's a lot more technical, because it's a smaller pitch, there are fewer players. Each player's role is much more important on the team, as instead of being 1 in 7, you're 1 in 5 players on the team. But I think it's incredible to be able to play both grass and beach and being able to alternate between the two. As the second you begin getting tired of playing on beach, you can go to grass, and the second you get tired of playing on grass, you get to play on beach.
Here is Guayota Tenerife with the trophy as Spanish First Division Ultimate Champions.
And great preparation for the World Championships in a few weeks' time. So I don't know how these guys are able to do it, traveling all over Europe and now heading off to the US for the Worlds.
Yeah, Sergio Díaz, MPO of the best player in the final, MVP. Are World Championships always held in US, or are there sometimes some World Championships held in Europe or somewhere?
No, they can move around.
Yeah, okay.
They can move around. Yeah, they were in Japan, if I remember, a number of years ago. So yeah, it just depends. They do move around. But obviously, in terms of where the largest number of players are based, the US, the Ultimate is big there, and the US typically win every division. They win the Open, they win the women's, they win the Masters, they win the juniors, and it's really up to the European.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that it's being held in the US, which means that there will be a lot of American players that maybe not be even playing for their own teams. There will only be a couple of teams that won their nationals, although a lot of American players from other teams will be picking up for other international teams as well.
Sean, Aidan, thank you very much for helping us spread the word of the Ultimate in Spain, and see you soon.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much. Thank you for having us.